got a tiny piece of ground and I call it my own. Call it my own. Call it my own. I got a tiny piece of ground and I call it my own. It's a home for the big old redwood tree. You know the loggers may not like it, but I call it my own. Call it my own. Call it my own. You know the loggers may not like it, but
Hey, good evening, and thanks for joining us for another edition of the EcoReview. We're marching into spring. This is just an exciting time to be in Santa Cruz. How pleasant the weather finally breaks. This is kind of our preview and tribute to Earth Day, a little bit early. I feel like this program is so special, and I'm not going to really delay getting our panel introduced. And as I mentioned, and I just want you people to make a note of that, along with the number that you're going to write down right now, in case you want to call us, you're going to write down 425-8844. Quick note now, you'll see it on the screen, but if you have it in front of you, then you can be part of tonight's program. This is a history-making show in my book. We don't ever have this many really relevant guests all at once on the program. So no further ado, I want to welcome our esteemed actor, activist, and celebrity guest, Daryl Hanna. And Daryl, thank you so much for coming up to Santa Cruz and for just all the hard work you do in the environmental issues that you're confronting. I just think, you know, you and Dave are kind of like icons in my mind for people that walk the walk and back up everything they say they're going to do by doing it. And it's just great to have you here.
Oh, it's exciting to be here with this guy and these two guys as well.
We have, of course, our viewers will know Dave Blume. David Blume is the executive director for the International Institute for Ecological Agriculture. He's also the author of the Amazon.com best-selling book, and actually Hunter Lovins called that thing a Bible for biofuel development in the 21st century. That's pretty prestigious credit, Dave.
Yeah, I was very honored to have that kind of endorsement from someone who really understands the issues.
Yeah, she said she fact-checked, and you didn't cheat on anything in there.
Yeah, I actually wrote my own papers in college, too, you know.
Scary. We have, for a first time on our program, Dave Stoltz. Dave Stoltz is the proprietor for Pacific Flyer Engineering. You're actually based in Auburn, right, Dave? But you're down our way a lot on custom car projects. And Dave is the master mechanic for the alcohol fuel conversion project that we undertook with Daryl on her Trans Am. And we're going to be telling you a bit about that as we go tonight. We also are fortunate in having, I think you're one of the real unique representatives on the panel tonight, Karl, because I can't think of green auto body shops. It just is a real anomaly in my mind. So, Karl Ryan is the principal for the Professional Touch Auto Body Shop in Scotts Valley, and Karl took on the daunting job of dusting off Daryl's car and spit shining that, and we're really interested to talk with you about some of the changes in just the tools that you guys used in doing that. It really is a greening industry from your perspective.
It's getting better. I mean, there's still a long way to go for the industry, and I'm in the process of getting my green certification right now, so I have one more hurdle and I'm almost there. So.
Awesome. Well, let's get back to you for a moment here, Daryl. And gosh, there's so many things. I know you were going to be leaving to take on the dolphin issue, and you've been battling for biodiesel forever, and now you're working on alcohol fuel. And just from your perspective, what do you think is the really critical issues around renewable fuel? How are we going to get it, and should we really be looking for it? Do you think we can get by on what the oil companies are going to feed us, or what do you think about that?
No, I don't. But basically all of the problems, many of the problems, if not most of the problems that we face as a species, and and all the other species and even the planet are facing right now, the crises that we're facing, come from the way that we produce our energy. And the fossil fuels that we use are a huge problem, and that's what I love so much and what's so inspiring about the potential of biofuels. Of course, they have to be made mindfully and ethically for them to be successful in terms of being a solution instead of being just another problem. But if they are made ethically and mindfully and from the right feedstocks and all that kind of thing, then they have the potential to really solve those problems and be an answer to so many of these crises that we're facing. And that's what I get really excited about, and that's why this guy is one of my all-time heroes, because I started running my car on biodiesel. I haven't used petroleum for about a dozen years now, and I started running my cars on biodiesel when my friend Charles Ford at the time told me that was possible. And he's also the one that first told me about David. He goes, "You've got to meet this guy."
I was wondering where the two of you met.
He's writing a book called "Alcohol Can Be a Gas," and he is the man. He's the main man. And Charles is a genius, and he has he's like tuning fork for what is authentic and what is the real deal and what really gets down to serious business. And so he told me about David ages ago.
Yeah, years ago.
Yeah.
Had you worked with him?
Well, I met him a couple of times, and we all three were on a panel at the Solar Living Festival up in Hopland, up near Ukiah a few years ago. And that's when we all really got to know each other, was at that event. And this was still when the book was being written, and we pretty much all made a pact to make sure that we got going on this once the book was out. And well, we have been.
Now we have a confluence here, and we also have Dave Stoltz, who I think would be probably more on your camp, although we'll ask you about that. Dave, are you a biodiesel user? Do you use that at all, or you're strictly an alcohol advocate?
Alcohol, yeah. I've been running alcohol in my vehicles in one way or another all my life, because we run race cars, and race cars forever have run on alcohol. And it's a different form of alcohol. It's methanol, but it's still a lot better than gasoline. And when the ethanol thing started coming along, I just went, yahoo, this is even better yet. Remember, I'm even going to start running ethanol in my race car and getting rid of the methanol. And it's just makes sense in every way. I get discussions with people all the time about it, and there's no bad points about it, in my opinion. It's all good.
So I'm curious, Steve, is there a rift or a split between biodiesel and alcohol fuel? If you're for renewable fuels, you should support any of these, or what is that?
Just the way that they're made. I mean, I helped found an organization called the Sustainable Biodiesel Alliance, and that helps delineate what is sustainably produced, harvested, and distributed biodiesel. And because you can go and burn down rainforest and ship palm oil from Indonesia over here, and boil down vats of animals to make biodiesel. So there are unethical ways to make biodiesel, and there are very ethical ways to make biodiesel with waste materials, with crops that don't take nutrients out of the ground, that don't sacrifice food supplies or harm any kind of croplands or natural systems. Same thing with ethanol. It's exactly the same. You want to use a productive crop, a feedstock, a highly productive feedstock that is first and foremost a waste material in your community. Is another model of sustainability. You don't want to ship your food from all over the world. Same thing with your fuel. And within your community, and you want to make it in the least harmful way possible, and that's what's great about all biofuels, is it has that potential. So biodiesel, alcohol, one and the same in terms of that. Alcohol actually burns cleaner. It burns clean, period.
Yeah, it's Barry Commoner, one of America's foremost ecologists, used to say, it's always possible to do a good thing stupidly. So, you can grow corn as a monoculture and use all these chemical fertilizers, which is oil, use all these chemical herbicides, which is oil, and you can deplete the ground of humus and fertility, or you can do it a different way. And what Daryl and I both agree is that when we make a biofuel, we should be holding ourselves to a much higher standard in making sure that those fuels, as in permaculture, don't damage other resources in the process of making them. In other words, nuclear power, big mistake. If you have a mistake with nuclear power, it ruins the land for 250,000 years. That's not a good
That's a
design
setback,
feature.
small setback, yeah.
So, when we talk about alcohol and biodiesel are good for different things, and they complement each other. So biodiesel is great for anything that's a big diesel engine. Although it's possible to run them on alcohol, both fuels work. Sometimes blending them together is even the best thing because alcohol and biodiesel mix perfectly well. So, for instance, in railroad trains, which have big turbines, they run really best on a mixture of alcohol and biodiesel, and that works really well. Jet engines, Richard Branson is talking about running his whole fleet of Virgin Air airplanes on alcohol, but it will have some biodiesel in it to help lubricate the turbine bearings. So, there's different, biodiesel is super slippery. It's a great lubricant. I've actually used it with alcohol in two-stroke motors like chainsaws. So the two of them together are really, good solution, for instance. But the whole thing, as Daryl says, is how do you produce it? And here in Santa Cruz, we could produce it from ocean kelp, growing right in the outflow of sewage from Santa Cruz into the ocean. So we'd be solving an ecological problem. The, properly treated sewage is still, out of balance nutrients, and we could absorb that with the kelp and make, the fuel for the city. I mean, it's the city's sewage. Why doesn't the city go out there and alleviate its cost for its fleet of vehicles by making alcohol right there, for instance? And then the byproduct of that, we could use on our farms because it would be kelp solution, which is a wonderful fertilizer. So when we talk about biodiesel or alcohol, we talk about slotting it into proper ecologically designed systems that support humans but don't damage nature in the process.
And actually bioremediate.
That's right, improve things. Sometimes I get in a lot of heated arguments, and I tell people, I don't believe in sustainable agriculture. They go, oh! And I say, it's too wimpy. Sustainable just means don't make it any worse. Keep it the way it is today. In other words, make it sustain for all future generations as good as it is today. But we've done a lot of trashing of the planet already. And in permaculture, which is the ecological design system that both biofuels fit in, we can improve on the damaged lands and restore them. So regenerative agriculture is what I'm in favor of, which is got a little more oomph than just sustainable, which is let's not damage things any worse.
Yeah. So oftentimes, and Karl, I want to get down to you on this issue as well. So, obviously there is an alcohol in the auto body industry, but what are the hobgoblins that are out there that you are hoping get corrected, or what are the first things you think have to be addressed to make that a green solution to incorporate here?
There are many dirty things going on in both my particular business, not in my business, but in my industry and mechanics. There's a culture of people that they have to change their way of thinking with respect to what they're putting on their cars, what they're putting in their gas tanks, how they're fixing the cars with respect to, okay, cars leak oil, and so where does this oil go? It goes to the stream, and how mechanics deal with this thing, it's almost like they'll go grab the kitty hair, and okay, so you just created a bunch of dirty kitty hair. What are you going to do with that? You can't throw it in the dump, because then now you're polluting the water again. So it's definitely a mindset that needs to change with respect to the whole. I mean, I'm one of the few businesses that you drive by now, you actually see a blue can out in front rather than just the green trash can. And that's something that I'm proud of. I mean, it's law of the county. And believe it or not, I don't think a lot of business owners are following the rules that they're supposed to recycle their office waste. They're supposed to do that. I don't think they are.
No, but one of the things that was so thrilling about working with you is that we're working on Daryl's car, and we wanted to make sure that every possible green option was explored in our whole renovation of this, incredibly famous car.
The car is the Kill Bill Trans Am,
Yeah.
the Trans Am I drove in Kill Bill.
Yeah, and when you told us that we could have a relatively lower pollution, or almost pollution-free paint, we just had to listen to what you had to say about that.
Well, thank you. And fortunately, this paint was developed before California mandated it. It was developed in Europe years ago. And so it wasn't something that, we all remember those trucks from the 90s where the paint's fallen off, the white pickup trucks. And California didn't have to go through those experiments because we had something already that was brought over from Europe. And so there was no experimentation. It was ready to go. And actually, believe it or not, in this area, a lot of people don't know this, but Santa Cruz actually is what's called a national rule area where we don't actually have to spray water-based paint here. The rule of law is solvent-based. It's so funny, you go to the top of 17 and the rule changes. And so I wanted to be ahead of the game.
On San Jose side,
on
they
the San
have to
Jose
use
town after October
water-based.
of last year, it's water-based.
Wow, but
That
not
just-
in Santa Cruz.
not in Santa
See,
Cruz.
isn't that amazing?
So,
What's up, Santa Cruz? What's up there?
I thought you were so progressive.
yeah, we got ahead of it, and I'm one of the few shops, there are a few other shops in the county that are spraying water, but we wanted to be ahead of it. It's actually a better product, the color matches better, and it seems to attract dirt a lot less too, which I have no mechanical explanation for it, but part of the problem when you paint a car is you're not doing it in a clean room like you're making semiconductors. So you will get as clean as your booth is. The car comes in with mud on the tires. You do your best, but there will be a little bit of dirt in the paint, and you rub it out. But you'd rather not have to rub the car. And so you'll see. I see it all the time in factory paint. You'll see
So
dirt.
this isn't, or is it a VOC issue? Is it a volatile organic compound that you're trying to get out of the paints, like in house paints, like in MTB out of gasoline, or
You're speaking of the paint itself, or?
Yeah, the transition from to water-based, is that anything to do with VOC, or
Oh
what
yeah,
makes
it's all
that
VOC.
correct?
It's almost a zero VOC setup with the new paint.
Awesome.
So suddenly, and I have to be especially careful because what's going out my stack is ultimately going next door to the feed store, which is going in someone's hay. So I mean, it's extremely important for me to be a good neighbor, to the feed store, because
So you
that's
understand the interconnectedness of
very much so.
all these things.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
that is amazing.
and we're very good neighbors. I mean, Mike bought the business about the guy that owns the feed store, and we're out there when it's flooding. I'm helping him with his pump. So I'm very concerned about what I'm doing to the planet.
As we all should be. That's awesome. So I want to cycle back again. So we're not really looking right at just transportation here for alcohol or biodiesel. Are the applications for biodiesel as comprehensive as for alcohol?
It can be, it is a fuel source, it's an energy source. So yes, it can be used for anything that you would burn diesel fuel into, so a generator, or you can cook with it. And it's, for cooking, you want to use alcohol because, especially if you're cooking indoors, there's no fumes, there's no toxins coming out of an alcohol stove.
Yeah, just water and a little carbon dioxide, but no horrible diesel smell.
Daryl had mentioned that some friends of hers are working on a Haiti project.
Yeah, I have some friends who are trying to set up a relief camp in Haiti right now and do it in a different way than the blue tarps and the terrible septic systems, or not even septic systems, but the terrible
Raw sewage
systems they're putting in. And so they gave me a call to find out what other options might be out there for cooking, which is especially problematic because everyone's cooking with this charcoal. And so I was thinking if there was an efficient and affordable way to create their own alcohol fuel and also make stoves.
Yes. Well, the thing about cooking is that it's not even diesel that we're replacing, it's wood. Around the world, 2 billion people cook over wood fires. And that's what's devastated the remainder of Haiti's forests. After the timber companies took what they want, the people living there have to use the wood from trees and shrubs to be able to cook. So they first bake that in the ground to make charcoal because it makes a better fire, but that's a huge amount of pollution that's going out as they make the charcoal, and they're deforesting. So if we go ahead, as Project Gaia is doing in Africa, where they have alcohol stoves that are very simple, and they teach the village how to grow things like cassava, which has like 700 or 800 gallons of alcohol per acre.
What?
Or like in your case with the sewage, some of the things that my institute designs are sewage treatment options that take the sewage and break it down in a marsh, and then the marsh plants put out maybe 2, 3, 7,000 gallons of alcohol because they're full of starch, and they've used up the nutrients and made that into something we can ferment into alcohol. Because starch or sugar, we basically put them in water, might do a couple things to prepare them, and then we feed them to yeast. Same yeast that make wine or beer. So then they go ahead and make a cattail wine, I guess. And then we go ahead and make cattail whiskey, like Roman soldiers used to drink 1,000 years ago. But basically, that cattail whiskey could be used for running generators, for cars, and for cooking, which, you know, for most of the world, alcohol is going to be more important for that, to prevent deforestation, than cars. In a lot of countries, there's only one car for 15 or 20 people, like in Haiti. But everyone has to cook. And women and children are severely damaged by wood smoke. Chronic obstructive pulmonary disease is extremely common in third world countries where people are cooking indoors over wood. Or women have a lot of eye injuries from, you know, from the smoke. And so, you know, it's a women and children's problem. So, needless to say, it gets very little attention on the world scale of things. But if each village could go ahead and grow a small amount of an energy crop and make alcohol efficiently, you could start reforesting Haiti, which is a project that people keep talking to us about, is urgently needed because the forest keeps the soil, you know.
Yeah, I think that's phenomenally important for people to realize when we look for energy solutions. The broader the application, it is, alcohol fuel isn't just about running your car, although you started running it in, when did you start using alcohol fuel?
In my street cars?
Yeah.
About a year ago.
No, in your, just in your life.
In my life, I started driving race cars when I was 19 years old, so I've been using it personally since then, but my father raced before me, so we've been running alcohol, like I say, all my life in cars, and I've always known it will work. And I've always been frustrated through the 70s, through all the different energy crises where there were lines of people waiting to get gas.
Where were you getting it?
You buy it at the racetrack. It's in 55-gallon drums. You can buy it, and it's always been cheaper than gasoline.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm going, what, you know, why are we still going through all this? We got what we
That's the thing
need.
that drives me crazy. I mean, even now, just right now, any car without any conversion can run 50% alcohol in it. Right now.
I run it in my wife's little Jimmy. I fill it up half full with E85 and half full with gasoline.
E85 is 85% alcohol.
Yeah.
You know, we have a caller, and I'd love to get the caller in there. Jackie, are you on the phone? Are you at the door? Can you send a note to us? We know you're out there, Jackie, and we're not giving up on you. So stay with us. And 425-8844 is that number. If you want to call, have a question for the group or the panel, we'd love to have that. And it sounds like we're wrangling our caller back in here. There's a little bit of a troll line.
While that's going on, you know, price is interesting because when Daryl and I and Ed Begley did a press conference in LA toward the end of September, we compared gas prices across the country and alcohol prices. So in Wisconsin, alcohol was $1.71 a gallon, and in LA, it was $3.53
For gas.
for gasoline. And
Yeah.
so, you know, why was it $3.53?
I want to pay more, personally. Call me odd. I just like spending money I don't have to spend. And I think that makes me American, frankly.
I was in Brazil.
Buy a bigger car.
I was in Brazil a few years ago, and that really opened my eyes because you go to every gas station, has alcohol at it, and it's half the price of gasoline.
Oh, we do have our caller back. I want to ask you about Brazil in a minute. Jackie, are you on there?
I am. Can you hear me now?
Oh, now we have you. There's
Hello?
a contact.
Go ahead.
Aha. I have a question about cook stoves.
Sure.
If I have a propane-operated home cook stove,
Well,
and I found a source of alcohol fuel, could I just buy a tank of that and hook it up to my stove and cook? I'll listen on the set.
Thank you very much. Thanks for tuning in. And you can catch us on the web, by the way, www.communitytv.org.
So cook stoves that run on natural gas or on propane can be converted to run on alcohol. Then they're kind of like a Coleman camp stove. You know how you have the little flame, you know, you start with white gas with a camp stove, and so you have a little flame, and there's a tube going across it. The flame heats up the fuel in the tube, turns it to a vapor, and then it comes around up through the burner. So there have been stoves made to do that. But there are also direct alcohol stoves, which have been always available for boats, because, you know, if you're on a boat, you don't want to use propane, because if you're cooking on propane, and let's say you blow out the flame or something, and a little gas starts to flow into the bilge, and then someone lights the next stove, and you find pieces of the boat 100 miles away, you know. So
DiCaprio makes a film, and Oscars are made.
So alcohol is very safe, and in case of a fire, you can just take some of this stuff, this water we have here, and splash it on the alcohol fire, and it goes out. Because alcohol, unlike gasoline, mixes with water. If you try to put out a gasoline or diesel fire with water, it just spreads it, because those fuels float on the water and just are spread. So alcohol is also not explosive like gasoline or propane. It doesn't vaporize as easily. In fact, well, gosh, when was the last time you saw someone in a bar with a martini and a 1200-degree cigarette and the martini exploded, right? It just doesn't happen, you know, because alcohol is much safer than gasoline.
That's one of the reasons they require it, and they make it, use it in race cars, because it is safer in a fire situation.
There's also something really interesting in this conversion box that you can put in a car to make your car run on 100% alcohol. Is like a tiny little thing. And it's amazing.
That's what your car has on it.
It's so cool. It's this little tiny thing, and it's only a couple $100, and your car can run on 100% alcohol and not use any petroleum at all.
Right, but if you get stuck, you can also use gasoline if you get stuck. Doesn't force you to.
You can blend it at any ratio if you need to.
Right.
Now, Dave said something important there. Daryl's car has one of those in.
Yeah, it's one of David's flex fuel.
Is that the only reason her car would run alcohol? Or could it run alcohol regardless of that box?
No, it has to, the box, we set it up with electronic fuel injection, and that's what this box is for. If you have a carburetor, you just adjust the carburetor, but if you have electronic fuel injection, which cars nowadays all have, and that's why we converted hers to that, because it's better than a carburetor, and then you can use the box on it, and that widens the pulses out in the injector nozzles and causes it to get richer, a little bit richer, and run on alcohol.
Yeah, you know, the cars that come from Detroit that are not flex fuel, they have a certain amount of brains, and they adjust pretty well. That's why you can run 50% alcohol, because the car can adjust that much on its own, but then it runs out of brains and it can't go any further. So what we put in is just a little more brains. You know, and we give the car the ability to continue to do what it always does, which is adjust for differences in the fuel, but do it over a wider range. Alcohol needs less air than gasoline to burn, because it has some oxygen in itself already, so it needs less than a gasoline vehicle.
Awesome. I just saw we have a caller on from Wisconsin. How are you, brother? Is it cold up there in Wisconsin?
No, we finally got some decent weather blowing in, so it got up to a whopping 40 degrees today, so we're in it.
You guys are in shorts,
it's mighty nice. So this is Mark. I was at Greg's, or at David's workshop up in Madison last year, and I just wanted to, you guys were talking about splash blending, and I've become a disciple of ethanol, and I even chase down people that have an E85 or flex fuel sticker on the bumper of their car, and if they're not using it, I tell them that all the benefits and how to use it and stuff. I've converted my car. My wife wants to do the van next, and we're just ecstatic about David's movement, and we're just wishing him the best and hope that we can really spread the word this year.
Awesome job, Mark. I tell you, what's your opinion of California versus Wisconsin or Minnesota?
Oh, Wisconsin and Minnesota are so far ahead of the West Coast. You always think we're first
Whoa,
to things.
Mark.
But, you know, in the Midwest, it's like, you got to realize farmers are treated like third world farmers. I mean, you've got dairy farms all over Wisconsin that are almost out of business because they can't deal with corporations controlling the whole market for milk and cheese, and that they tell the farmers what they're going to pay for it. There's no competitive bidding, and so these dairy farmers are wondering, what are they going to do? And when I was there in Wisconsin, and I was working with the senator, Russ Feingold, who's a great guy, he was saying, you know, well, we need to do something like this because we can't like directly subsidize the farmers, even though it's important to keep them there. But if they can make something a little more profitable, you know, with some of the byproducts of their farm, for instance, you know, Wisconsin's famous for cheese, right? So the cheese whey, the liquid part that's separated to make the cheese, is full of sugar. And in Wisconsin, there's lots of cheese whey everywhere, and it can be made into alcohol. So it's an extra product that the farmer gets out of his remainder from making the cheese. Or he can grow different crops. Like in Wisconsin, there's areas that weren't glaciated, and so they aren't rocky, and they have great soil for sugar beets or fodder beets, which is just as good an animal feed as grain is. So, but
you still get to use the animal feed.
That's right, because when you make alcohol, you only pull out the starch, but all the good stuff, the protein and the fat and the minerals, that's all still there in the mash, and then that gets fed to animals. So, you know, when the opponents of alcohol say, yes, we intercept and destroy 25% of the corn to make alcohol, it's just not true. It's true, it goes in the alcohol plant, but what comes out is alcohol and just as much animal feed, minus the starch, that went in. And it turns out that cattle can't digest starch. So if you want to reduce global warming, cow farts don't put in a lot of starch that they can't digest, you know. So we're just using what normally the cows poop out, but we're intercepting it first and taking it out of the way. The cows are healthier. So it makes more milk when we feed the byproduct, especially beet pulp. In Europe, the dairies bid on it and competitively try to get the fermented beet pulp because it's so good for the cattle.
You know, there's a
iron.
Yes.
there are a lot of directions we can go and explore the uses for the biofuel, but I'm thinking you brought in a clip from it. You guys are doing a newscast tomorrow from Sacramento. That's a live newscast tomorrow. And
that's right.
What's
We're taking the EPA to task because they are blocking states' rights to be able to increase the alcohol that's mandated in the fuel. Right now, oil companies are hiding behind an old 1980s rule that said that 10% alcohol was acceptable to the EPA, but no one tested anything beyond that. So the oil companies are saying, we're not going to go with any state law that says you want to put in 15 or 20%. We're going to hide behind the EPA rule. Well, so farmers went to the EPA and said, there's all these studies that show it's fine. Our study in California that we did was with 50% showed tremendous improvement in quality. And they said, well, we have to study it for 6 more months. Well, that's pretty diabolical because, as we all know, farmers are under severe pressure, and the alcohol business has been faltering because of economic conditions and the oil problems. And so what's happened in the last 6 months or a few months is that more alcohol plants are going bankrupt while the EPA tries to figure out they already have the studies in their files, and oil companies are buying the alcohol plants. Valero owns more alcohol plants, more than almost anyone else at this point, and they bought them up out of bankruptcy, which I got to say, the EPA is really assisting the oil companies in this by delaying the use of E15, 15%. But yet they certify E85, and there are millions of people who've heard Daryl and I on the air who are now, like the caller we just heard, putting E85 in their normal car at 50%. And the EPA is saying, well, we're afraid that 15% is going to increase pollution. And it's absolutely not true.
So we're going to show just a moment of this clip, and we're going to come back and talk with Daryl, Dave, and Karl about the conversion of Daryl's personal car to run on alcohol fuel. We have that clip?
And we should make the
There's some popcorn.
So Daryl's car
is old.
So what did we do up there, Dave, in Auburn to test?
Well, I've got to say that clip is so secretive. It's actually news coming out tomorrow that we had to blank screen. I'm sorry, you'll have to tune in because, as I understand, that's going to be a streamed event tomorrow. Right. People will be able to tune in and watch it on IIEA's site, or there is a streaming link to it and stuff.
Or Daryl's site. We put the link on Daryl's site too.
You did?
Yes.
Awesome.
So I'm sorry to tease you and tempt you with it, but the news is just powerful, and we can't leak it. We're under NDA not to get it out yet. Well, you know, this being community TV, and our crew, Kathy and Jeff and Ron and Ryan, they work magic. So we're gonna just give you a taste of this. Remind me, this is, you know, news we have to gauge.
That's right. We got to not tell too much. Yes. So here we go. The vehicle we're going to be testing today, it's the 1979 Pontiac Trans Am that Daryl Hannah drove in Kill Bill. So by anyone's definition, this is an older vehicle. And this is what the EPA claims to be worried about, which is possibly older vehicles won't be able to run E15 or 15% alcohol and be as clean as they would be on gasoline. So we're going to run tests today on this vehicle with gasoline, E10, which is currently permitted, and E15, which many states want to use. So let's talk to Bob Butler, who will be performing our test today, and we'll be using his equipment in this California state certified smog testing station. How you doing, Bob?
Good, David. Good to see you.
Great. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the equipment we'll be using to test the car today and why we should trust these numbers?
Well, like you said, this is a California state certified smog inspection system. It's a worldwide environmental product, emissions analyzer. It's certified by the state of California to test the emissions on every vehicle that comes through here.
So what will we be looking at here as you do the test?
What we basically have here is a four-gas analyzer. We're going to be looking at hydrocarbons, CO, CO2, NOx. We'll be able to see our miles per hour. And what we're going to do with this setup is we'll be able to test the vehicle at 25 miles per hour with a 25% load on the vehicle. And what that'll do is that'll simulate basically a portion of an actual official smog inspection that this vehicle would receive. We're starting with E15 right now. We're going to be testing E15. We're ready to go. We'll get the car warmed up and give her a go.
Let's do it.
All right.
Wow, that's going to be some kind of interesting news. So the scope or the scale of that would be?
Well, we're going to use the EPA's own equipment. In other words, what they have us use in California, which is the strictest air standards in the country. And we're going to have some very definitive results, you know, if you come in tomorrow. But basically, there's no doubt that E15 is cleaner than E10 on Daryl's older car. So what is, I mean, if we did this like in one day, why is it taking 6 months for the EPA to figure out if it's a good idea? And I got to say, I sure hope it's not because they want oil companies to buy a few more alcohol plants.
I'm curious, Dave, where does E15 come from? Because there isn't any, is there?
No, we mixed it up. We got some denatured alcohol and mixed our own blend of E15.
You can't even find it.
You can't buy it, no. But I was going to say that a trick, this is not supposed to do this, but a trick to pass smog laws. If you got a car that's a little sad shape and you want to pass your smog, a lot of hot rodders and stuff will dump some ethanol in there with the gasoline and it passes it.
That's it. Don't try this at home, kids.
Right.
But if you happen to, a couple of gallons is enough.
Yeah. Of course, if you're up there in Lassen County, in California, Lassen County, there is no smog test. It's like, burn it. If it's a tire, put it in there. You know, if it gives you energy. Oh, we've got a caller. Let's, Beverly, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
Wonderful. Do you have a question or comment for the group?
Yes. Hi, Dave. It's
Hi, Beverly.
Beverly Day Show. And Karen Kaplan.
Oh,
The house party.
the house party, all watching the show tonight. Well, glad you guys are enjoying it. It sounds like you've already been working on the alcohol part of it.
So we're having a potluck to watch you.
Oh,
Here's the question. Two things. What happened to the permit in Santa Cruz to get the alcohol station, and where can we get it?
Well, I'm afraid to say we're still working on that. We're about to form an alliance with the Community Foundation to work together to get the grant for the alcohol station into play, and we have some good sites in mind. And you know, Santa Cruz has been here a long time, so when we first started looking for a site, it seemed like every single square inch of Santa Cruz had some plan for it. There really wasn't anywhere to go. You know, we found some potential sites, and it was quite a challenge to work through all the regulations, but we think we have some better sites in mind, and we hope to get something going in the next 6 months on that. But for the time being, I have to drive over the hill to buy alcohol right off of 101 and 17. There's a station on Coleman there.
Do they sell E85?
They do sell E85, so I have a pickup truck. I make sure I bring 20, 30 gallons home in that, and if I ever run out around here before I can get over the hill for something, then I just fill up with my jugs, you know?
Yeah, I was thinking about you at the LA event back in September. We were at the airport, I think, trying to, who are we picking? Hunter, maybe,
Yeah.
but we've got Dave's truck with all of these jugs in the back going through the airport, like around and around and around and again. You know, never once got asked about that, did we? We had all sorts of gear piled in there, and
TSA just didn't think of us as enough of us as terrorists that were going to blow the place up.
Except for, I heard you were just going through the airport with your alcohol heater, or your forced air heater.
Oh yeah, well, you know, we demonstrate that fuel oil or alcohol or biodiesel ability to heat, you know, a house with water, and it went into the X-ray machine, and all these alarms start going off, you know, and these guys come up and, what is that thing? And I said, well, you're gonna have to unbolt it to see, because it's all, you know, and they look at it, it's a fuel opener, and it kind of looks like a bazooka, you know, and these guys like called in, you know, the SWAT team, the supervisors, and they, I said, it's a house heater. They go, sure looks like ordnance to us, you know, and they wouldn't let me put on the plane. I had to take a cab and take it to FedEx to ship it home, you know. And, but anyway, you know, San Lorenzo Valley here, people use fuel oil in Santa Cruz,
Yeah.
which is kind of, you know, amazing, because naturally that's somewhere else.
Yeah.
And, you know, people could be using alcohol or biodiesel or a mix anywhere, you know, that they have fuel oil up the San Lorenzo Canyon. So
You've got a good biodiesel station here in Santa
We
Cruz.
do.
I've used it many times.
oh, you have? Great.
Yes.
Well, you know, Ray
Ray'll be
Newkirk
delighted
and-
to hear that.
I know
Ray's
you guys
worked
at the
hard
party
on
are going to hear this. You know, the Green Station is at Ocean and Soquel, and sells biodiesel here. And if it was a permanent place, we'd be selling alcohol there too. But we're looking for, both of us are looking for a joint site somewhere in Santa Cruz to put both fuels at it.
Nice.
That is so awesome. Karl, you know, we've talked a little bit about the mechanical process of transforming this. Give me just a little bit of insight. What did Daryl's car look like when it arrived at your doorstep? Was this the proverbial golden baby with silver spoon in mouth?
Hang on, let me explain.
All right.
Because I was somewhat gifted this car after the movie, and there were two of them. There was the one that I drove most of the time, and the one that was the beater backup one, you know, for other shots. And Michael Madsen said, you know, hey, Quentin, do you think I could have the other one? You know, Daryl's getting the car, but I would like the other one. So Michael got the other one. But he got to the office, the production office, before me and took the good car. And I get there, and I'm left with this car that didn't even make it out of the parking lot of the office before it went on fire. Literally went on fire in the middle of the crossroad, and then I had to get it towed. And I never was able to drive it. I put thousands of dollars into it just to get it running enough to pull up to the premiere of Kill Bill, and then I've never been able to drive it since then. So, you know, the stickers were peeling off. It was just a mess when you got it. I don't even know how you turned it into that thing.
That answers the question about the hood. We wondered if it had ever been in a fire, didn't we, Karl?
Did it look, oh, you did? Did
Yeah,
it look
they had
like
to
it?
replace it.
Yeah, I thought it was a different movie. I thought I was playing in Mission Impossible.
And of course, there was the rat's nest under the hood where they chewed all the wires, you know. But
Yeah, it was
man,
brutal.
we had a lot of fun though making this car both beautiful and very sweet sounding when you hit that accelerator with the alcohol. It really takes off now.
It's going to
Well,
be like a race car.
Yeah.
Well, I'm curious, so traditionally, you take a car like Daryl's, there's older paint on it. Is there hazards just transforming that? So you had to strip this down completely, right?
Yes.
The car had to come down completely.
Pretty much to bare, not almost all the way to bare metal, yeah.
And you had to disassemble a whole part of the car to do it right, rather than just paint the
Yeah, no Earl
outside.
Scheib
And
job.
is that something you're trying to protect? Your workers, and is that part of the greening of the auto body industry?
Believe it or not, that's one of the last things I purchased was, instead of the traditional way of hand sanding with a block, I purchased a vacuum so that the dust goes into a container and then we send it out. We don't throw it in the trash anymore. We're going to send that for hazardous. So, I mean, every part of it, because that dust just goes in people's lungs. It goes on the ground.
Now, would it be as bad with the water solution paint, or is that because it was the older style paint?
You still have these issues when you sand a car. You still have hazardous materials when you sand. Anytime you sand something, that dust goes somewhere. So
We've got another caller on the line. Bob, are you on there?
I certainly am.
Awesome. What's up tonight?
Well, I have a ton of questions, but I'll try to keep it to maybe just two that are related. First of all, I'm a big fan of David Blume and your book, and a big believer. It's quite a testimony to your life's efforts. That book is amazing, and I'm a big evangelist.
Indeed.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. What I'm curious about is just your take on what you see as the number one impediments to the larger adoption of alcohol as a fuel, and sort of related to that, what you think are the main things that are blocking it being more in the media, more talked about. It's always very interesting to me that even things that seem really obscure, like hydrogen, get more airplay than alcohol, which seems a much more viable, really the only seemingly viable bridge to a post-peak oil future for the world. So.
Well, that's a question I've been having to deal with my whole life.
Thanks for your call, Bob.
I'm up against big oil practically every day, but worse than that, I'm up against their propaganda every day. Because the oil companies made $125 billion in profit starting 2 years ago per year, and they spent maybe 1 or 2 of those billions to just generate massive flotillas of propaganda. So you've all heard these things like, oh, alcohol burns hotter than gas and will eat my engine. Well, Dave, does it burn hotter than gas?
It burns much cooler.
Burns cooler.
It's bad in a cold morning with my little Toyota pickup because it doesn't like getting hot with that alcohol
Right.
in there.
Or, food versus fuel, but it turns out the last 3 years we've had surpluses of like 2 billion bushels a year that nobody bought, on and on. So fighting that propaganda to even begin to talk about the benefits of alcohol is half of my day. And believe me, there's been too much press about alcohol because the press every day is force-fed propaganda, and the American Petroleum Institute is a master at this and has been doing it for 60 years. So, but we have one thing on our side. It's kind of wimpy, it doesn't, it's not all that effective, but it's the truth, And when people hear it, they go, I knew that story about food versus fuel had to be phony. And it's the thing I would say for people in regards to the whole propaganda thing is, if you hear something negative about alcohol, think, how am I being manipulated against my own best interests? Because who loses when we make our own fuel and farmers all over the country in a decentralized way are doing it, and we're buying it maybe from our own cooperative stations that we're working with farmers on? Who loses in that whole thing? The people who lose are the oil companies, and they have a
lot to lose.
A heap of money. And the thing is, like the caller mentioned, peak oil. People are starting to recognize that, yes, we are at the end of the line with oil. It's going to be harder and harder to get out of the ground, more and more expensive. And what we're going to get instead, oil shale, tar sands, coal to gasoline, you're talking super filth. And at some point, if they can delay alcohol long enough, just like the banking crisis, just like many other things, they'll come in and say, oops, we really don't have that much oil. You need to give us hundreds of billions of dollars to build our filthy factories just so you can get the fuel to take your kids to soccer practice. And if you don't, you won't have it. So if they can delay alcohol, keep it from being developed, that crisis that they can create will get us to pay $150 a barrel for oil instead of the $40 or $50 a barrel for alcohol. But if you make it yourself, like from old donuts, from candy waste. We have one student making it from Pez, all the broken Pez candies. All that stuff, you can make it for 25, 30 cents, $1 a gallon. And if you're a small entrepreneur, if you're making it for $1 and you're selling it here in Santa Cruz for $3, when gasoline is $4 and $5 and $6.
Or even if you're selling it at $1.10, you're still gonna. Everyone will come to you.
Yeah.
Volume.
Everyone.
But I think we all know that gas is heading for $6, $7 a gallon over the next 5 years, and
Don't you think that the only reason gas isn't there now is because of ethanol?
Well, that was one of the arguments. Like we said earlier about when we were in L.A. and it was cheaper in Wisconsin than California. It's because California doesn't have very many ethanol stations. If you're in Wisconsin, how much gasoline are you going to sell when alcohol's $1.71 and the gasoline is $3.50? It's like, oh, I don't put some of that in my car.
Yeah.
But when you don't have the option like we don't have in California, then they can get away with this predatory pricing. And go to Hawaii, $4, $5 a gallon. Alaska, $5, $6 a gallon. South Africa, $12 a gallon.
And there's no reason for it because they could be making it in Hawaii as well. I mean,
Whoa, there's a lot of people in Hawaii that want to take the old abandoned sugarcane plantations and start making fuel with it.
I want to take. I know you're parked out there by the short meter, Daryl, and the time's ticking on that. I hate to say that, but I want to take a quick look at your process for renovating this car, and then we're going to go take a look at this and see if it's just as pretty as we're being told that car is. So show us that the paint shop. Or don't, but I'm going to tell you, if you don't, we're going to go out there and look at the car anyway, so you might as well show us that paint shop clip. Or don't, because frankly, what we're thinking we're going to do is take a walk right out there, because there's a lot at stake here. There's professional reputations, all this time and work that's gone. So let's just take our team of experts out and scrutinize.
Why don't you guys head out for the car, and I'll cover if there's any more questions. We have a couple people in the audience, and then I'll be right behind, so go right ahead. Oh, hey.
Oh, there it is. Oh, no, there it isn't.
I hear it. I hear Sandy.
There you go.
Let's take this.
How long are we going to have there? How long do we have out?
It looks a little different now.
Yeah, we went through some changes here in the shop. I've taken this car completely apart. All right, every little thing gets painted. Will get painted separately on this car.
The whole front of the car.
I've taken the complete car apart.
Oh yeah, look at all this.
I mean, I've taken the rear bumpers, the lights, all the back window's loose. It's just sitting there. And separately, the metals, the flex agent we got to put in that. Front rear bumpers. It's a lot of work here.
So all these pieces are going to get painted separately, because if you didn't take them apart, it would show when they come together. So I hear you're going to use a really green paint on this car, one that's not full of a lot of volatile chemicals.
Right, we're going to use a water-based paint on this car, and it's a PPG product. It's good. It started production in many shops, and we're setting up for it here. This will be painted with that product here.
So there's a lot less volatile chemicals because it's a water-based paint, and it's better for the environment.
A lot better for the environment.
Great,
So,
excellent.
Grief. You're telling me this is a 79-year-old car?
I know.
79? This is...
It's so soft, too. I don't know if that's the water-based paint or what, but it just feels soft, softer than a normal car.
That is gorgeous.
Beautiful.
And Dave, I'm assuming that the work under the hood is every bit as slick as what we're seeing up here. Is that...
The fun thing is you can't tell it's been changed over. It's all kind of hidden under there.
Everything's...
It looks stock, but it's stealthy.
Wow. It is gorgeous.
Can we show that box?
Oh, can we pop the hood?
Yeah, let's show the box.
So, when Karl first got the car from the fire, the decal that was here, it actually
was
burned.
all bubbled and
Yeah.
So right here, this is the box This tiny little thing is the thing that makes it able to run on 100% alcohol.
Or gasoline.
Or gasoline, right?
Yeah, but who wants to use that stuff when you can use alcohol?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right, well, let's hear it.
That looks absolutely, yeah. Maybe it doesn't run though. Maybe it just looks good. Is this one of those that just kind of looks sweet? Yeah.
Drive it in, push it out.
Come on, Dave. Let's blow this popsicle
Dave.
stand.
Now, I saw you on YouTube the other night, and you were saying something about dinosaurs. How did that go?
Yeah, well, you know, real environmentalists don't burn dinosaurs. You know, they're kind of endangered. There's only a little bit of liquefied dinosaur left. So
It's
America,
okay. Thank you.
oh, it's our favorite.
Oh, give it some pedal.
Sweet.
Oh, sweet.
All right. Be really bad.
Oh, that is sweet.
Gosh, really there.
Oh, with a squeak and a squeal. That is just a remarkably gorgeous looking car. And to think that it's running like that and clean as well. I tell you, I feel lonely coming back to the set, and all my buddies are gone, and my nice race car is gone, and well, at least our friends are still here, and it's so interesting. I want you to just note we had calls from North California, we had calls from San Jose, we had calls from Wisconsin. CommunityTV.org is like spiraling out there on the web. Tell your friends, they can watch this Tuesdays and Fridays, 6 or 11 p.m. at night. And this show will rebroadcast until our April program. But Daryl, Dave Stoltz, Karl, Ryan, David Blume, how awesome to have these people accessible and doing the work they're doing here. Doesn't it make you want to get out there and change your car? Doesn't it make you want to go to Sacramento tomorrow and find out what this fuel station thing's about? I mean, I'm probably going to drive over there. I'm probably going to find somebody to ride with just to save myself that gas. So I really do appreciate, and I think it would be really good for us to say, thanks for watching the EcoReview, and thanks to all my crew, Ed Shell for his great work. He's done so much with us on the car project, and Ron Holman and Kathy D'Angelo, my co-producer, and David Gott, and we've got Ryan working sound. It was wonderful tonight, and I'm just so grateful that this exists, and that people like these, well, they were here, you saw them, and you saw them here on EcoReview.
It's a home for the big old redwood tree. You know the loggers may not like it, but I call it my own. Call it my own. Call it my own. You know the loggers may not like it, but I call it my own. And it's a home for a great big redwood tree.